David, Bashir, welcome to the Democratizing SEO podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Very good. Hi, Austine. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, very well. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you both for being on. I think this will be a very interesting conversation. This will be the first one around the whole recruitment of SEO, which you guys specialize in. So I'm very happy to have you both on. The topic for today will be, I'm titling this, "What do I need to know to hire an SEO professional?" And as you guys focus on digital marketers, I think you'll be a perfect group of perfect team to speak with today. So to kick off with, David, tell me about the story of Prodigi.
Okay, yeah. So Bashir and I, we've been working together for a long time now. We before Prodigi, we actually had our own digital agency, e-commerce agency, in fact, that we ran for 14 years. And over the time of that, we specialised in building and supporting and developing traffic for e-commerce sites. So we work with a number of large retailers in the UK, and we built it all around the Magento and then Adobe Commerce platform. Now, a big part of that was SEO, whether you're looking at the build of the site, the migration of the site, improving the structure of the site from what they had before, and then ongoing traffic growth. It was a core part of what we did, along with the development and the design. Throughout the time of running Best Response, we were facing increasing challenges about recruitment. We were based in central London. All of the skills we were dealing with were highly in demand, and there was a lot of competition all around where we were located. So we really had no choice but start looking remotely to hire roles. Now, the first place we started was development, which is where lots of people do. And we made a few mistakes, but then we started to get it right, and it worked really well for us. We built a very good team. And we were able to, our recruitment processes worked really well, our assessment processes. So we were able to hire and retain really strong development talent in a very quick time frame. And we had cost benefits as well. But most importantly, it was about finding really good people faster than we would have done in London. Now, when that was working for us so well, we started to look at what other areas could this benefit from. And a big one was obviously SEO. We had a big SEO team based in London, and it was expensive, and it was also challenging again to grow that out. But we would think, well, is it not UK focused, UK dependent? Are we going to be able to find people with the same knowledge and skills offshore that can address the challenges of Google in the UK? Which now, I mean, that sounds silly, but we're talking a few years ago, and we had a few years ago mindset. But again, long story short, we built a massive SEO team across Serbia, Croatia, Bulgaria, and the standards of the skill was very, very high, from technical SEO, content, outreach, literally everything, and plus client-facing abilities. So to long story short, about just a little over a year ago, Bashir and I, we exited Best Response Media. We sold to a much larger group, the Brave Bison Group, and the big focus of that was so that we can really focus on Prodigi. And Prodigi started a few years ago. We started providing a staff augmentation to our clients, so we would provide them dedicated professionals to work with them. And then that kind of evolved into us actually hiring people directly for the clients. And then it evolved to where it is today, where now we work with digital agencies and SaaS companies, fintech, and we help them with that major challenge, which is hiring the best tech talent at a reasonable time frame at an affordable rate. But we focus on outside of the UK, a lot of Eastern Europe and other such countries.
I'm curious, Bashir, the name Prodigi, is there a story behind it?
It's really a play on words to do with professional and digital, and yeah, it's pretty much that. But no particular story. We brainstormed on what sorts of names we could have, and that was one of the ones that kind of stuck. And yeah, we ended up running with it.
So hiring can be a full-time gig. I'm sure you guys already know, especially if you're outside of London, in the UK, I should say. What would you say are the main things a hiring manager should know about SEO in order to hire for it, Bachir?
Sure. I mean, the main things. This story depends very largely on what sort of organization and the size of it, and what sort of areas. I mean, as you know, SEO is not a one discipline. It's not a one thing. There is many sub-disciplines within SEO, whether it's content creation or technical SEO and audits and the like, or more like on the strategy level, more senior. So different sort of levels require different approaches, I guess. If you are, I don't know, a merchant and you're looking to bring SEO in-house instead of dealing with an agency directly because you think you're going to get, I don't know, more hours for your money, which is a legitimate sort of course of action. We're seeing more and more merchants kind of choosing that course of action, thinking, you know what, or just businesses that traditionally would have gone the agency way and paid a retainer £5,000 to £10,000 to kind of get somebody to kind of assist them on their SEO efforts. And they start thinking, you know what, for this, I could acquire maybe a small team of one or two people that are supporting me. And that approach differs greatly from if you're an SEO agency looking to create hire professionals because of the shortage of skills that we all know everyone in the UK is experiencing because of reasons we won't go into at the moment. So the approach will differ. If you're a large agency, you're probably looking more to hire a hub, to create a hub and hire people within that hub, because you'll get sort of the benefits of having larger scale. You can create links with academia, with universities, start getting fresh talents and nurture them. You get, again, more of a cost-effective way of growing your team, because then you are creating your own homegrown talent. So different organizations will have different approaches. What do they need to know? I guess the biggest things for me is having a good handle on, what's a good cultural fit for your organization, having a good understanding, because SEO is a very collaborative area. SEO is something where people need to work with each other. They need to work with the SEO team. They need to work with developers. They need to kind of potentially work with stakeholders. So having a good understanding of what are the standards a new employee need to meet to kind of fit in within your existing team. And then obviously you need to kind of make sure what are your requirements from a skill set point of view. And do you have what it takes to assess a newcomer and understand whether their skill sets match your needs. SEO is one of these areas that have been moving so fast for many years now, and is still carrying on moving at breakneck speed. Even us, we used to own an agency that do SEO, and every now and then will be sort of somebody will tell us a piece of information that we didn't know about, and it's normal. You're constantly learning, so you do not want to end up with somebody with out-of-date information or out-of-date methods. So you need to be able to assess any employees and assess their skill sets. But I guess the best approach is to deal with a professional who could do that for you. If you haven't got those skills in-house, that's why we exist, and that's why we help our clients to do that very well.
David, do you?
Sorry for the plug right there.
No, that's okay. You mentioned
not very subtle.
you mentioned earlier, David, that you work with agencies, and also you hinted at it at Bachir. With the service that you guys provide, do you also work with brands who are looking to hire someone in-house, or is it mainly agencies?
Yeah, we work with brands as well. I think Bachir kind of touched upon it there, where you'll get scenarios where when you look at massive e-commerce retailers and merchants in the UK, say Boohoo or End Clothing or Gymshark, when you look at you can look at the team structure right now. Most of them have not only got bigger internal teams than an agency, bigger internal teams than good-sized agencies, into the hundreds of people. the sensible, and a lot of that you can argue really fuels the growth. That's not to say they wouldn't work with external agencies, but really they're in a position where they might get some work with external agencies on very high level strategic advice, but build that big production implementation arm internally. So we find that, merchants will reach a point when the external cost of agencies for doing a lot of execution just doesn't make sense, and they want to start bringing things in-house. Also, there's just the unfortunate thing that there's lots of agencies out there that do a fantastic job, and we like to think we were one of them before. But also there's lots that maybe don't do such a good job. So a lot of merchants will have had one or two bad experiences with an agency that they're paying for the retainer, and especially when it comes to SEO, it's like, well, what are you guys actually doing, and what's your strategy, and where are these? What's happening to our results? Merchants are one of the areas that we do work with.
Are you finding that this is increasing over the years, or is it more or less the same year in, year out?
It's going up because it's getting more competitive for merchants, especially there's been a huge growth in D2C over the last few years. And they are, there's only 10 places in the SERPs for them to compete with for any keyword. Yeah, there's many, many more people competing. And obviously Google just keep putting more and more emphasis on giving over real estate to paid ads and to their own sort of native content delivery. So the level of competition for these merchants on an acquisition basis is getting harder and harder. So as a result, they're thinking, what else can we do? And like what Bachir said, if we can, for the same money of paying an agency a certain retainer, we can have a full-time body or full-time bodies doing it, then surely we're going to get more bang for our buck.
I'm thinking when I used to hire SEOs when I was client side, the main recruitment firms I know are the big brand names, the generalist, right? They recruit for all services, marketing and non-marketing. And they were my default go-to. What would you say separates you guys from the generalist, Bachir?
And that's a good question. First, we don't think of ourselves. In fact, it's funny because even going back to when Prodigi came about, we never referred to ourselves as a recruitment company. Even now, I still have problems kind of calling ourselves a recruitment business, because whilst what we do is a form of recruitment or talent acquisition, but we're very different. Number one difference is that we specialize in offshore. Not to be confused with outsourcing. We do not, sell an outsourced solution, but we help you hire offshore talent. So the majority of recruiters that we're talking about, they're primarily, if not exclusively, specialized in UK recruitment. So they try to find you somebody within a certain radius of your postcode. Maybe there are more and more hybrid roles post-COVID, where they'd be looking at talent maybe from further afield, but still within the UK. We are driving a different sort of approach here. What we're thinking about here is helping you get the best on a global level. Now that might be limited to kind of time zones plus 1-2 hours away. That still kind of suddenly becomes a much larger radius that kind of crosses border into different countries. So yeah, the offshore thing is a big thing. The second thing is we're not generalists. We only specialize in digital. So we don't work just, spoke about agencies, we spoke about e-commerce merchants, but we deal with anybody within the digital or tech sector. So developers, designers, online marketers, PMs, AMs, sort of, any role, architects, you name it, but within the digital sector. So we're not generalists. We focus on this sector that we know very well from our experience and our background, right? So yeah, what differentiates us is we're not going after the same audience. If somebody wants to recruit somebody in their office in the UK, obviously they won't come to us. If somebody's looking to get the benefits of hiring offshore, namely quicker time to hire, obviously the cost benefits that are undeniable. And because of the talent shortages, sometimes it's not even a choice. We speak to a lot of people that have been trying to hire positions for like 6 months, 9 months. They haven't been able to find somebody that is good enough, just because there aren't enough people, or the salaries are far too high for them to stay competitive, or don't fit within their business structure, and they can't protect their margins, paying contractor fees that are quite frankly, getting ridiculous in certain areas. So they come to us to try a different approach that will help them kind of move forward and get the talent they need to fuel their business.
Also, there's one other key aspect as well, and it's our ability as an organisation to assess the talent. Really, to not want to, blow our trumpet, it'd be very difficult for most traditional recruitment companies to assess in the way that we can as an organisation, because we've done it. We've worn the t-shirt. We've built these teams for ourselves, and the way that we train our resources as well. A lot of our resources will have actually worked internally for other companies that come from technical backgrounds, but we have a lot of processes in place to ensure that our ability to assess is high level. When we deliver someone to a client, they're going to know that it's bang on the brief, because we understand the nuances of how to actually assess these people, whether it's
hiring talent. We've done it for 14 years ourselves. So, as opposed to a recruiter who understands it from a, almost like a matchmaking point of view, what you're looking for, versus what a person is saying they can do, and they try to kind of get those checklists. And sometimes there are companies out there, don't get me wrong, that do some checking and do some assessments, and it could take the form of some sort of an online test. I've seen there's a lot of various solutions that do testing, but not many people in that position have run teams themselves, have hired themselves, have delivered projects, hundreds of them. So that gives us hopefully a little extra that these guys don't have, that hopefully helps us do a better job of finding the best talent for our clients.
And equally for the candidates as well, for the talent, we're better able to match them with the right roles. We're able to, we could have a fantastic candidate, but then we can know after speaking to them that the role, they might not be interested in that. So the last thing we're going to do is waste their time either, pushing them down an avenue that's not going to be of interest to them. And we get a lot of great feedback from both sides of the table saying about their satisfaction in the process, that we understand how to put together the right people.
So when hiring for an SEO professional, are you able to share the process that you have in place, Bachir?
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, it all starts with the brief. It starts with the customer and their needs. That literally is the biggest kind of starting point and the main factor in that informs how we're going to go about it. But once we have that understood, so we do a discovery session with the client, understand exactly what they need from a culture point of view, from a skill set point of view, what sort of experience, based on the sort of work they're working on, what sort of person will be best suited for that work. And then we go and have our own process. We have our own sourcing team. So we identify sort of target lists of people that we think would be a good fit. Mostly we do a lot of headhunting. We have our network, obviously, that's another part of that puzzle. We have really, really large networks of people that we worked with we have sources in different places and people that we worked with. So we're plugged into multiple clusters around the world of people doing this job. As you know, when there is one, you find around the world, one SEO agency sort of pops up in a village somewhere in Eastern Europe. They're good at what they do. And then a lot of people learn from them, and then another one and another one. Before you know it, you have a cluster of a few hundred, few thousand people that are very skilled in something specific in an area that is, you'd least expect it. So we're plugged in a lot of these clusters, and we know where they are, and we know a lot of the people in there. Alongside that, but you can't always rely on that, because good people are always working. It's very rare that you find somebody good sitting waiting for you to reach out and go, yeah, actually, you catch me at a good time. I haven't got anything to do at the moment. Typically they're working. So what we do a lot of outreach. We have a very solid outreach process. How do we identify the list? How do we go after them? The messaging, the credibility behind it, so they respond to us. Don't forget, these people, good people, are getting hounded daily by every recruiter and their uncle trying to kind of sell them the dream job. Again, that's something that we don't try to do. We try to kind of build our credibility by through strong relationships and connections and recommendations. And then once we have a short list of suitable candidates, then we have our own assessment process. and filtering process, whether it's like the basic language skills, which, whilst it's an obvious one, but a lot of people, believe it or not, one of the biggest objections when you deal with people who haven't built offshore teams before, they go, can they speak English? Are they good communicators? Believe it or not, that's one of the, that's something that hardly is ever a problem. The people that we deal with tend to be very, very fluent, both verbally and their written is of a high standard. So then once we assess them, then we present them to the client, and then the client has to do their own sort of interviewing process. Typically, they'll meet. If it's a technical role, there'll be like potentially tests involved from client side that sometimes we help them even devise based on their needs. So to give them that satisfaction that person, that peace of mind that the person is the right person for the job. So that's typically loosely the process for hiring, but it varies. Again, is it a large team or is it a one person? Is it a senior role or is it more of a junior? Is there a bigger team that they need to fit into, and how much is the cultural fit a big factor in this? So yeah, but generally that's the overall process we tend to follow.
Do you ever have a case where a hiring manager is unsure of what they need for an SEO? So they are aware they need SEO, but they pretty much don't know anything else, whether they need on-page, technical, what level they need. I'm sure you guys must have this crop up often. How do you go about dealing with that, Bachir?
Do we ever have this? Yes, typically this is a problem that you have with businesses who are not agencies. Agencies tend to know what they want because they have their existing teams. But, right, businesses, whether it's like we said earlier, e-commerce businesses or just lead gen businesses, and there are a lot more of them out there that are also, that need SEO to be visible. And it's a bigger part of their online strategy. And yeah, for them, they go like sort of SEO is about delivering organic traffic. We need to build an SEO team, or we need just an SEO person. Now, the two are very different ball games. One is about building a team that is able to deliver, and it could be made of various people in multiple disciplines. And the other one, you're looking for like a consultant type person. And it's a tough one because when you have one person, typically it's very rare when you find one person that is very good at all the things that you need to do from an SEO point of view. They'll be good at strategy. They'll be good at sort of the technical aspects of it and making plans and identifying where the problems are, and then delivering on that, and then doing the outreach and then creating the content. So I tend to kind of advise clients that, don't try to get everything in one person, because that doesn't work. If you're going to invest your money to get somebody senior who could do the really smart stuff, if you really want them to spend, the day based on the money you're paying them, sending outreach emails for 4 or 5 hours a day, it's just a low value task for a high value person or a high salary. So the solutions to that is, you can get somebody in-house, either depending on your budget, either junior to do a lot of the heavy lifting and have maybe a freelance or a consultant type person, or even an agency to kind of put the broad, there's a strategy of what you're doing. That way you're saving a lot of money on those low value tasks. Or the opposite, you can get somebody very senior to be working with you and not dealing just with SEO, maybe with other online channels. It really varies from business to business. So it's key to understand the needs of a particular business in order for us to advise what is the best person to kind of place. But to answer your question, do they want just one SEO person who could just kind of a Google whisperer type person? Yes, there is that expectation more often than not.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something every client side or brand essentially requires or wants, especially if they're unaware of what they need from an SEO. They tend to go with a generalist SEO, whereas they might need someone who's more technically focused, or an outreach person, or a strategic SEO person. So finding that balance is often difficult for brands, and they tend to just go, well, we just need an SEO to cover all areas, and they might not know the details of that. Now, David, of course, from a technical point of view, a technical SEO just requires solid understanding of technical SEO. Whereas a brand who might need someone who's more on-page content or even outreach, off-page SEO, requires them to understand a certain level of they require a certain level of understanding of the business that they're in or the vertical that they're in. I'll give you an example. Healthcare is quite niche, especially if you go into specific areas. Let's say pulmonary fibrosis. Don't ask me why I know that term. I just happen to know it, right? So having an SEO work on,
are you going to tell us what it is, or are you going to let us guess until we check it after the podcast?
I remember the term, but I don't remember what it means. It's something to do with the way the heart beats, like it skips a beat or something like that.
Like what Tony Blair had?
Sorry?
Tony Blair had something like this and had it fixed. Okay,
oh, really?
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's for back in the days when I used to do keyword research on it or around it. But anyway, this leads to the questions like within a specific vertical. If you require someone who's not technically focused, so you want someone who's more of a content or off-page person, they need to understand the business or at least the vertical. Do you guys consider this when you're recruiting an SEO, as in what vertical they've worked on before and how quickly they are able to adapt to different verticals depending on the business that they are going into?
Yeah, definitely. Because even when we had our agency, we had different types of clients. We'd have very mass market sites, which were, they'd have tens of thousands of SKUs. And for them, it was very much about just growth and discounting. And they didn't have, although they had an identifiable brand, it wasn't a luxury brand. So for them, it was just, and there was a huge amount of work when it just came to the technical on-site work. And the impact that you could get for improving their rankings on just essentially fixing the categorization, sorting out the URLs, sorting out all the product pages and everything. Whereas on the other side, we also work with very high level luxury brands with a much smaller volume of SKUs. And for them, the level of technical requirement was a lot lower because the sites were just smaller. And for them, it was about sensitively, when it came to link building or outreach or content, we constantly had to juggle the luxury brand maintenance with how are we going to actually acquire the right kind of traffic. So, when we would be looking for ourselves, it's the same with our clients. We have the same scenarios now. We have clients where they, exactly what I've just mentioned, tens of thousands of SKUs. They produce content, but it's more just about meeting the needs of the keywords, doing the how-to articles and all that kind of stuff. And also and like I mentioned about the D2C area is growing massively, but in a lot of these cases, they have much smaller sites, much fewer SKUs, and much bigger emphasis on that brand and the tone of voice. And especially even if it's not in luxury, it's just maintaining that identity in a crowded market. So the last thing they're going to want is someone that could come in and be technically proficient, but have no clue about being a brand guardian and the negative impact on doing certain things on the bigger picture of the company. So yeah, long story short, yes, it's something that we'd experienced a lot of, and it's something that we still advise our clients with today.
So just to add on what David said there, so David gave you an example there, a very good example between kind of companies that are very, that care about brand, tone of voice and whatnot versus generalists or bigger retailers who are, a multi-brand kind of thing, but that's within the e-commerce. But to answer your question even further, you mentioned about industry knowledge. That is true for various things we do, not just for SEO, but, for all the roles that we work with, whether it's development, it could be somebody in the financial industry or somebody in pharma, or like you mentioned, or medical and pharma. So the benefit of, especially for SEO, the benefit of having somebody with that industry knowledge is you get an accumulative knowledge of what works and what doesn't in terms of if somebody works for a similar business, they tend to know with SEO, there's two things. There's generating a lot of traffic, but then making sure that traffic converts into leads or transactions, wherever the desired outcome is. Somebody who's worked in a similar business, they have more of an understanding of, what strategies or what tactics work to generate leads, to generate traffic within that industry, having so you're getting almost somebody who has a similar experience than somebody who must have worked in your business for a number of years. So yeah, there's definitely value in that. Can you always get it? Probably not. There's shortage of skills. People move about, and there are industries that, that have certain practices or are more competitive than somebody coming from that industry would be beneficial to your business because they're way more competitive than, your industry. So yeah, having industry experience is definitely advantageous, but it's certainly not the be all and end all. There is other ways to kind of gain somebody with relevant experience that could be just as relevant to your business.
Mm. So David, from an SEO point of view then, is there a specific demand for SEOs? Is it more technically focused now, or is it strategic or on page? Is there a specific area that's in high demand for SEO?
All of it. There isn't one which is outshining the other. It's all of it. Our clients, agency clients, they're just seeing massive growth, which is contrary to what may be going on in the wider economy. The agency world in the right kind of areas, they're still thriving. So, right now we're working with multiple agencies on multiple areas, from content to technical to on page. And the same on the client. There are cases on the client side and the merchant side where they need a bit more guidance from us about what they need. But yeah, it's across the board.
Right. This leads me to remote working. I'm sure you guys will know it's increased ever since the pandemic. Do you envision a world where everything is remote as far as SEO is concerned, Bachir?
Everything is remote. Yes. Yeah, I guess it's already happening. We have clients that are today servicing different continents, servicing America, with a leadership team in the UK and a production team dotted around the world. So yes, it is already there. The future is here when it comes to remote working. There's a lot of companies that have adopted it. Is it right for everybody? That's a different question. Certain companies, and I'm not talking just about SEO specifically here, certain companies seem to still benefit, and there's no denying the benefit of having face-to-face. We all, if there wasn't value in it, we wouldn't even be turning our cameras on, right? We want to see each other, we want to kind of feel that human contact. But when it comes to being more effective at running a business and more practical in terms of you have obstacles to hiring and having people in the office that are obvious today, shortage of skills, not being able to find the people that you want very close to you. The cost of traveling, not just financial, but in terms of time, all mean that, remote working is a solid way of doing business, and people are comfortable with it now more than ever post-COVID. They have been forced to kind of get used to it. Can you operate an SEO team fully remotely? 100%. A lot of people are doing it. A lot of people are doing it very successfully. A lot of the best people that are doing SEO are doing it remotely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Austine. I was just going to say, for me personally, my experience of what makes a great SEO in any of the verticals is a hunger and a curiosity, because it's moving so fast. It's those people that they're consuming so much content about what's happening next, and then that's triggering them in their mind of giving them an ability to test and to hunt out other things. You could be sitting in Bucharest, in London, in Manila, and you can still access the same information. It's down to the individual and that has that hunger and that desire, and that hunger and desire is everywhere.
Is the talent pool the same country to country?
No, unfortunately not. It would have been good if that was the case, but no, different countries have different, factors that mean that there is more, talent available or less, or, more expensive, or, every single country have their own, specific conditions. I guess the talent pool is spread, but not evenly across the globe.
So, David, if a hiring manager wanted the best, quote unquote, best SEO, this might be unfair to SEOs in particular countries, but is there a specific country that you would recommend to that hiring manager? You want the best SEO, you need to hire from this country.
Austine, you want us to fall out with the rest of the world? I strongly advise David not to answer this question. No, I'm joking, but yeah, go on, David.
Honestly, I would say no. I would say no. We hire amazing SEO people for our clients from a multitude of countries. There isn't one place which is head on, and it's the same with developers. It's everything. I mean, if we told you some of the places that we've found some incredibly high level developers from, it's everywhere. And the advantage of going, as opposed to being focused on a postcode or a country, is that you have a broader pool from which to source these amazing people.
And like David was just saying, sorry, Austine, David was just saying earlier, there is a democratization of access to information. Everyone has internet and everyone has access to everything. We dealt with companies around the world, in Africa, in Ghana, in Kenya, in Morocco, in Egypt, in Europe, all over Europe, from Eastern Europe, from Ukraine, and everything all the way to Western Europe, in Asia, Americas. Everyone has access to the same information, and people who are interested, who are passionate about this as a subject, will learn about it and will become very, very good at it. And we've seen that time and time again. So yeah, there is no one place where there is, a specific place where you find SEOs growing on trees. But, there are some places where the industry has, there is more companies doing this, and there's more people who are sharing information among themselves. So there is bigger concentrations of people in different places. But there is no one place where you say they have the monopoly on knowledge, or some places where they have nothing at all. As I said earlier, it's spread unevenly, but it's across the globe.
Doesn't this then mean the competition for SEOs has broadened? It's literally unlimited now, right? So a person from, say me in London, I'm not just competing with SEOs in London anymore. It's global. What can SEOs, David, be doing to ensure they are on top of their game?
Well, you're absolutely right. Firstly, it's a global competition, but it's also a global demand. So how you can stay on top of the competition, I guess you've got to look at it in two factors. Are you forging a path as a freelance or independent consultant, or are you as part of working for other organizations? In both cases, there's a lot of value in doing a lot of the things that we're doing now, creating a podcast or blogging or being more active on LinkedIn, sharing your knowledge and showing that you know a lot about SEO, and that you're also staying ahead of the times. And you're also not just regurgitating the same stuff that everybody else is. Here's 10 prompts on ChatGPT to supercharge this, that, or the other. If you're an independent consultant, then, it's really important to be working on that personal brand. But even if you're working at another company, I've seen people who have become quite prominent on LinkedIn, and they're still working for other companies, but I will imagine that their ability to command a higher salary will be directly influenced by the visibility that they've made of themselves. So again, there's a million opportunities out there for anybody who's interested and has that interest and determination. Many years ago, my interest in SEO, I used to build a lot of affiliate sites, back in the early noughties, and
the good old days.
At a time where it's quite, Exactly. So you can spin up a load of sites and get some nice affiliate commission working pretty quickly. But the point was, it was also a good opportunity to kind of flex your skills as well. So I would always, as an employer, I was always interested in the people that, not necessarily had affiliate sites, but maybe they had a blog or some other kind of personal project that showed that they have this area that they can sharpen their tools on outside of work. These are big things that I think still that show, okay, wow, this person's been able to do this for themselves, and they really have this interest compared to people that clock in and clock out.
Bashir, I'm thinking logistics, or not logistics, infrastructure, specifically internet/Wi-Fi or broadband connection. I remember during lockdown, during the pandemic, I had to increase my, or should I say, bump up my broadband bandwidth, right? Just because it was quite poor in my area. Do you find that this is something that you're particularly aware of when you're recruiting from markets that don't necessarily have or aren't necessarily known to have that internet broadband connection? Is that an issue at all, or is it just not
It's a great question, very great question, and infrastructure is crucial. Infrastructure is very important. Different roles, different teams have different needs, and they can vary greatly. An SEO typically, they need a stable internet connection, but they don't need like a very solid, high-speed fiber, like say somebody who's working in some sort of motion design or other areas, or big data, or even certain developers where they need to kind of be able to kind of deal with downloading bit. But then we're talking here about working from home. Now, the future looks very bright for this because, again, along with, we said, the democratization of access to data or the internet comes with the same thing for telecoms, where before you needed fiber everywhere. There's now things like 5G, which are, promising very, very high speed connections for anybody with like, a phone or a computer with like a router that just kind of relies on that sort of thing. But when we're looking for things like hubs, building teams in a certain location, typically we make sure that the locations there, and typically in many places in the world, is very well served. I mean, as long as you don't go somewhere very out of the beaten track, there aren't many places in the world that are still very cut out from telecom infrastructure. But that wasn't always the case. There were times in the past where there were places that used to have internet outages in certain locations in the world, and we have dealt with them in the past, and that's what made this something that we think about when we're thinking about building teams and creating a hub. Is that a country where do shortages happen? I mean, here in the UK, it's not unheard of, but it's very unlikely for that to happen. But there are places where electricity or the internet can go down, so we're very conscious, and it's something that informs our. But for all the places that we do business with, especially when building teams or hiring, this is not an issue at all.
All right. Let's move on to budgeting, which just cropped into my mind, or cost, I should say. Is it a case of, because the demand for SEO has broadened, David, is it a case of the cost for an SEO professional has gone down, or has it increased?
It certainly hasn't necessarily gone down in these locations, but in terms of how cost effective it is compared to UK salaries, it's still incredibly cost effective. Like for like comparisons on salary, you're essentially going to get sometimes 2 or 3 times more experience for the same money that you pay in the UK. So yeah, it's not gone down, but it's still very cost effective.
I'd like to add to what David said. The comparison, though, is not linear. On the entry level, I think there is a bigger salary difference between an entry level in the UK versus an entry level in some other places in the world. On the higher end, on the best people in the world doing SEO, or like the top of their career, that gap narrows. And it's about getting the best people, about, as opposed to kind of getting, way cheaper. You're not going to get like somebody who's world renowned, even if they're based in God knows where, India or Pakistan. There are some really, really clever people with SEO, and the daily rate they're not going to be cheap. I mean, a lot of people think just because somebody's based very far away, they're going to be way cheaper. That's not true. At the top end, it's about buying the access to the best skills out there, as opposed to kind of saving tons of money. But as David said, overall, it is incredibly cost effective to look offshore for sure.
Does this mean then?
Offshore for sure.
Does this mean then that it's nowadays the locational barrier is no longer, the location is no longer a barrier, and it's more about the SEO ensuring that they focus on their branding in order to attract the best rates? Let's go with Bachir.
Yeah, I mean, location is not a barrier in terms of knowledge, for sure. There are barriers that could be that have to be considered. I wouldn't call them barriers, but challenges or things that you need to consider when you're looking outside of the UK. In our case, when it comes to personal data, for example, what sort of level somebody needs to access in your systems. We have here. Customer protection, GDPR, that you need to be aware. If you're a data processor, if you can give access to your systems to somebody, they need to be within an area that you're not going to be breaking any commitments to GDPR or to your whatever if you're a data processor or that sort of thing. But yeah, time zones as well. If you're going to collaborate with somebody on a daily basis, you need to work very closely with them. You want to have some sort of an overlap time. You don't want them to be too far away that you only have 1 hour that you can talk to a day, unless one of you is staying up until midnight. But away from these practical considerations, I don't think location is an obstacle anymore. No.
So, David, with something that just came to mind is the whole quiet quitting area of work and the generational gap. Is this an issue, and is it something that brands should be concerned about, especially with folks working remotely?
I think the most important thing when you're building a remote team, but frankly, just any team nowadays, because even in the UK, a lot of them are still remote, is thinking about how to create a sticky culture. So most importantly, are the projects the team are working on, are they exciting, and are they giving them opportunities to develop their skills? Are they giving them opportunities to actually have an input as a company? How are you treating the employees in terms of, again, transparency and input into the bigger picture and career progression and structure and all those kind of things? Obviously, are they being paid well enough for their level and for where they live? But salary is only important to a point. There's been lots of research around that as long as people have and this is another factor as to why remote hiring can be beneficial, there's a limit to how much money anybody needs before the impact of a pay rise really has much of a bearing on their life. The problem being somewhere like London is it's so expensive that, a few more £1,000s has a big impact on your life. But if you're living in one of these other locations where you're already getting a good salary relative to the country, so you can afford to live in a nice location and have a nice house and go on holidays and everything, there's less of a risk for you leaving purely for money. So it's about the cultural side and the fulfillment side at work. Anyone in the technical world, and obviously outside as well, but this is what we're talking about, as long as you're offering the opportunities for your SEO team to have an impact, to go to work and see what they're doing is actually having an impact on the business they're working for, and then they're personally going to be able to develop. There's training opportunities. Maybe they can go on other courses or going to conferences. Flying them over for Brighton SEO, for example, from if you've got teams in Eastern Europe. These kind of things have a massive impact on engagement and retention and just general performance.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, Bachir, big question. Overall, why should the business work with Prodigi for their SEO hiring?
That's a good question. Not every business should, but businesses that are looking to hire good SEO professionals, they're looking to level up, they're looking for quick times to hire, they're looking to hire cost effectively and drive some value into their business, should work with us, because we are probably one of the best ones out there to find you the best talent across the world that will fit with your business and help fuel your growth and give you good results. So I hope that answers your question.
It does indeed. David, if an SEO wanted to be represented by Prodigi, what should they do?
Well, if they visit our website, which is prodigy.team, and it's spelled PRODIGI.team, there's a link there where you can apply to join, and if you just submit through your details, and then we'll arrange to have a chat to understand their technical proficiency and all the rest of it, and then we take it from there. It might be that someone could get lucky, apply, and we've actually got a perfect opportunity already available. Conversely, if we've come across some really good people, then we would be able to proactively take them into our client network, because they're always looking, even if they might not have an active opportunity. They always say to us, look, if you get an amazing person with these skills, please let us know.
Awesome. Thank you both for being on. Where can people find you online? Let's start with Bachir.
Find us online. We're everywhere. We're on LinkedIn. We're on. We have a website, like David just said, prodigy.team, spelled with an I. And where else do we find people? Prodigy.team or LinkedIn, I think, is the best places to find us.
Yeah, agreed, Bachir. LinkedIn's probably the main area outside of the website where we're the most active.
Brilliant. I'll have those links in the description so people can get in touch with you guys. Thank you both for being on today. Have a brilliant day.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure. It's been an interesting conversation. I'd like to do more of these SEO recruitment based conversations. It's been fascinating.
Here we go. Now he's telling us he's going to invite our competitors into the show. That's great.
No, I don't mean it by that. I mean, I focus all the conversations on topics. So if I have a SEO recruitment related topic, you guys will be the first I will invite.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
You'll be interested in coming back.
Of course. It'll be our pleasure. We really enjoyed talking to you today, Austine. Thank you for taking the time and for having us on the show.
Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely, Austine. It's been great. Really, really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you both. Have a brilliant day. We'll catch up again another time.
Cheers.
Bye now.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.